My name's Jeanette Gurney, and I'm happy to be in front of you today. And our subject is going to be sketching in line and wash, and we're going to be looking through my sketchbooks, because everybody likes looking through a sketchbook.
Definitely.
And my husband is going to be helping me with this.
I'm going to be fielding questions from Millburn High School. Hi, everybody out there. And Jeanette's going to answer your questions as we go through and look at examples of
Line and wash.
What is line and wash?
Line and wash is basically a drawing where you add a little bit of color.
Yeah, watercolor and pen would be another way to say it, right?
Watercolor. Yeah, watercolor and pen is what I prefer. Start with a pencil, but I usually end up with a pen. And
well, let's dive in. Let's start looking at why don't we look at your process, what materials, how you're set up in the field.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so let's go. Here I am sitting down. It looks like the edge of a garden, and obviously I have almost no supplies. I've got my lap, I've got my paint box, a couple of travel brushes, and a rag and a Tupperware of water.
And that was one of the questions one of the teachers had: is do you work on an easel in the field or on your lap with another setup?
Yep, and if I'm on a narrow sidewalk, I'm just sitting on a low folding stool, and once again, I don't have an easel. I've got a little bit more going for me here. I got a smaller cup, and I have a rubber band holding my box to my sketchbook. There I am in China. I didn't carry any heavy-duty stuff with me because we went carry-on. And boy, I just brought basic sketching supplies.
Do you usually work in bound books? That someone asked. Do you work in bound books or on loose pieces of paper?
For about the last 25 years, I'm strictly bound books. It's like a journal. Out west,
an easel.
An easel appears.
It looks like a tripod.
And a tripod. So the tripod's a photo tripod. Lightweight, folds up into a really small aluminum thing. It's great. You can pack it right in your carry-on. And I use clips to hold the sketchbook to it.
Can you work sitting and standing at your easel?
I can. I can make the easel tall or short. This one, of course, it's in my lap, but we got folding chairs because we're in a car. That makes it, you can carry a lot more gear.
Comfortable chairs.
Notice the hats. Always hats.
Why hats?
Because you need to keep the sun off your face because you'll just be squinting. And because I wear glasses, for some reason it seems to bounce off the top of my glasses and I'm really blinded. So a hat with a brim. We're not, we're freezing because
gloves.
We're traveling. Weather. We are doing our laundry, and we're in Geneva, Ohio, and we just got a few minutes before I have to run in and comes off the spin cycle, and I got to put it in the dryer, so I'm in a hurry. Okay, trip to Ireland. We went with the stools, and there we are. No diffusers, no umbrellas, but we got what we need. Cold again. Notice you can work in gloves if you need to.
Here's a question from one of the teachers. Do you prefer working alone when on site or with a friend nearby? And why not?
First, that reminds me of an anecdote. When we were painting in front of a diner next to each other, as usual, and an old guy comes walking up, and he looks at me, looks at Jim, and he says, are you two friends or are you married? And we said, I don't think I accept the premise.
Yeah, bad question.
Bad question. What do we got? We don't have tripods with us except to hold the camera, which is on Jim's thing, so we can make a video. But we're just, you notice in my hand, that's a water brush. That carries its own water supply. And if you're just doing a little bit of wash with your line, water brush is the way to go. They carry enough to get a couple of drawings done.
Cold
Snow
weather.
again. But I'm standing, you notice, so I can wear my pack boots, felt lined, nice and warm. I got a thin glove on my right hand, because I'm right-handed, and a thick glove on my left hand.
Now, basic question, how can you paint in watercolor if it's below freezing?
That's it. You can't if it's below freezing. If it's from about 35 and up, you can.
Okay.
Because the water freezes right on the hairs of the brush, and you can't do any washes.
Someone asked if you use a viewfinder or a phone, like a cell phone. to find your composition?
I am looking through a cropping device. In this case, it's not one of those little scalable ones. This is just a piece of mat board, which is painted black, and it's got a rectangle in it. And I can hold it up to my motif and not try to get the whole darn world into my painting. It limits me. Oh, and by the way, I'm working on a stretched piece of Arches watercolor paper. And I've just got that one shot there because it's not a whole sketchbook.
Okay.
So, and I think I have a diffuser above me for shade. More diffusers later. This is an example of a wrong diffuser. We were at the New York Botanical Gardens, and it was green. Worst possible color for a diffuser.
And again, what's a diffuser for?
Diffuser is to keep the direct light from hitting your paper and your palette, because that makes you kind of temporarily blind.
Like a white umbrella?
Yeah, a white umbrella is the best diffuser. And there's one.
Ah, there you go. Okay.
A white umbrella works just great. But the one problem with these gigantic French white umbrellas, it's by company Soleil, I think Soleil, it catches a wind because there's no vent for the wind. It takes off like a helicopter. That's why I have my bag of junk hanging off that C-stand to try to keep it from doing that.
If you don't have one of those, can you just work in direct sunlight or under the eaves of something?
Very difficult.
Under a tree?
If it's continuous light shade, yes, it's fine. But if it's dappled, like from a tree, it's deadly. Don't try that.
So you want even light on the work
headache.
you're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, even diffused light.
Exactly. Here is a homemade diffuser. This works great. It's just basically a kite, and it's made out of ripstop white nylon with reinforced corners and fiberglass sticks that kite sticks basically that you can hold it open with, and it clips to the easel. This shows another kind of diffuser that we came up with. Now my husband made these. We both have them. Mine is, you can see from the back, his from the front. And it's just a square that covers your sketchbook and your paint.
And more information about these homemade easels on the Facebook group called Sketch Easel Builders.
This is what my lightest kit would be, just to carry around or for traveling, or it fits in a really small pack or even in a purse. Just starting from the left top and going clockwise, that adjustable viewfinder is really helpful when you're trying to limit exactly what's in your field of view. That's a landscape and a line and wash of my sketchbook. And then following along, that's a 2-ounce Nalgene water cup. What's great about it is that the lid seals beautifully. It never leaks. And that's how I carry water with me. It's always with me. It fits in my purse even. That's my small watercolor box. Mine's a Winsor Newton, but Schmincke makes one as well, and it's enamel. It's fairly heavy. It started out with 12 full pans, but I like the half pans. The top, you can see I have some full pans, but I can put more colors in if I go with half pans, and blobs of sort of a spiker plate up there on some colors that I've decided I really like. To the right are travel brushes. They all have lids, which means the hairs of your brushes don't get messed up as they dry. I got 2 water brushes that are next to it, a big one and a little one. My favorite ones are Kuretake. They're Japanese, and they don't leak either.
Oh, they're also marketed under the name Niji, I think, sometimes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right? They have the water inside the handle, and you can squeeze the handle to get the water out.
We've tried some other ones that just don't make it. They leak or they blob out big bunches of water. These never fail me. So they're good. I got a series of clamps there, 3 different kinds. The Helix drawing board clip takes up the least space on your sketchbook. So that's sort of something to consider. The spring clamps sometimes go flying off, and it's sort of dramatic. Always a rag. Always carry a rag. I have a little German pencil sharpener, eraser.
Cloth or paper towel?
You could use paper towel, but they leave lint.
Oh, okay.
The cloth is better and reusable. Okay, there's my Pilot pen and Micron pens. Those are the ones with permanent ink. I don't like the ink to run. My husband likes his ink to run, so he uses fountain pen with water-soluble ink. And
So if you put a line down and then put a wash over it, these won't
these
dissolve.
will not spread or dissolve.
And if you use what kind of pen will dissolve?
Fountain pen, but he delivers a beautiful, even line, which I prefer.
Yeah.
I got water-soluble colored pencils there. The ones I like best are the Caran d'Ache Supra colors. Got a white chalk pencil, regular number 2 pencil, and my Maulstick straight edge, which is a ruler. That's it.
And someone asked what size you prefer working, or do you always work small?
Nowadays, I work small. When I was doing full-on watercolors, and I still do them from time to time, I worked with like a quarter sheet of Arches watercolor paper. That'd be 11 by 15. These are 5 by 8. This was done in your classroom with Mrs. Harte-Gilsenan's class.
At Millburn High School, yeah.
2010. That's my husband showing him how to do dinosaurs. It was fun. They had to imagine dinosaurs in your town.
Dinosaurs invade Millburn, New Jersey.
That was fun. They did a great job. Now, to line and wash. This one's pencil and wash, which works fine too. It's, I don't know, what can I say? It's on watercolor paper.
The pencil is not as black as an ink line.
Nope, not as
So
black.
it's lighter.
Yeah, it's just, we were waiting for our son to get out of a movie, so that's how much time I had, about an hour and a half.
And do you ever have the car drive away while you're working on something like this?
Always. It's good to start with the car, actually.
Start with the thing that's going to move first.
That's right. The guy, of course, all I had was, he was walking fast. He was shopping, a tourist in our town. So I did what we call the flash glance method. So you look real quickly, remember it, and just jot it down really quick. This abandoned houses are always good to sketch because no one's going to come out and yell at you. We did get chased off, though, by an irate nun, a convent house, and she didn't like us sitting there. Abandoned, very abandoned house. Pencil once again, and quick wash. Very, very minimal wash, just to show that it's autumn. Very gray, this one. Also pencil.
Kai asks, how do you determine a compositional balance between vague areas, such as washed out watercolors, and specific detailed areas?
Perfect one to do it on. Well, here I am. Another abandoned cottage, very, very old, early 1800s, in a park not far from us. And obviously I didn't want to spend much time on those trees or on what's in front, but I love architecture. So I had a good time with this one, vernacular architecture. This was very, very cold, so quick. Almost no line in this one, but it's pencil and it's in there. Can't do it without it.
Is that snow on the ground?
It's snow.
Wow.
And what's wonderful about it is that you can use the white of the paper to do the snow for you, which is helpful. I did use line, though, on the line of the Catskills in the far distance, on the far side of the Hudson. So just one line there to show what's happening. This one's pen. Ballpoint on watercolor paper.
Ballpoint. I don't think you've mentioned much about ballpoint. Why ballpoint?
For many years, that was my favorite, ballpoint. I was doing that before the Microns and the Pilot. I just loved ballpoint. Everyone's got a ballpoint around.
It's got a light touch, and it's more pressure sensitive than some pens.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's fun to decide what gets painted and what doesn't. And I like sort of trailing off on the edges.
Well, that's what someone asked. How do you decide where to trail off on a painting?
That is interesting. Like sometimes you can see on the left I got the bush white for some reason. I just stopped at the bush. And on the right, kind of, it trails off into foliage, weed. I don't know if you guys have gone to the Halloween parade in Greenwich Village ever, But this is where they build those puppets for the Halloween parade. And it's an old estate near us. And these guys are building the puppets. I just was interested in that colorful laundry. I mean, this really says line and wash. What do you think?
Yeah,
Pardon my pun.
I noticed you've left a large area as just the white of the paper. Now, what made you decide to do that as opposed to putting washes over them?
Sometimes I just want to put in the shadow. The shadow, as you can see, cast by the sun, is gray. I just decided to go with gray on the tower, on the architecture. Warm and cool in this case. Ballpoint pen. It was...
When you say, what do you mean by warm and cool?
Warm and cool, I'm thinking of... I use the ultramarine blue for my cool, and then I was bouncing up light from the ground with ochre, and I think I might have a little burnt umber there.
So it's like basically blue versus orange, more or less. If there had been red or green in the scene, you would have just ignored it?
I wasn't interested in red or green, or I don't know if there was any. Not much. On the right, there was a pine tree or something.
So are there some subjects that you prefer? In fact, this is what someone asked Tiffany, I think. Some subjects you prefer to draw in full color and other ones where you might use an approach like this?
There we go. Color. This one needed color. It's full-blown spring. And the lilacs were in bloom. And the two different blues at the top, the tower was a cerulean, the sky was a cobalt, and I had to use color. I believe this one's ballpoint also.
Now what made you, in fact, this is a question from Ella, what makes you decide to paint that specific building or street scene?
That specific one had the lilac that was in full bloom and the water tower above the whole thing. And then that complex electrical power with a transformer.
Now, Jude asks, how do you decide when to make hard borders or outlines like you did on this one, as opposed to simply freehand or fading out to the paper?
This is an odd case. I really screwed up an entire page in my sketchbook, and I covered it with something called absorbent ground, which is made by a few different manufacturers. And you put it over watercolor paper, and you're free to start something new on top of it. It's more absorbent than gesso, so you can use watercolor on it.
Does it take the paint differently?
It sure does. It makes it, no matter what you put on, it sort of saps the color out of it. The pigment sucks right in. It really is a kind of absorbent and...
but it doesn't dissolve under the water.
No, it doesn't dissolve. So, I mean, you can see where it's rough or I missed spots when I coated what I had.
It looks textural,
but
too.
But it works great for line and wash in gray, ink and wash, just black and gray. That's a gray wash. And there's no gouache on this. It's just the white that was there from the absorbent ground.
Eli asks, are there elements of storytelling in your art? If so, like how would you suggest a story or something, some sequence of events that may have happened?
Well, I know all these animals by name, and this farm we have been painting and drawing at for probably the last 20 years. It's not far from our house. It's a walk away. The other side of the same farm. And a forsythia is irresistible. Forsythia, and it looks like a magnolia. Early spring.
And this you have much darker lines there in the center of the picture.
Those are with, I think there's a Japanese, a brush pen filled with ink already, and it's by Pentel, and it's refillable. It has a great tip, and
nice.
I use that for the lines.
And am I seeing watercolor pencils
you
in the middle?
are, good eye, Mr. G. That's definitely, because I probably didn't have my watercolor with me that day.
So to explain how a watercolor pencil or a water-soluble colored pencil works.
Okay, that's those super colors that you saw in my box. You scribble on the dry paper, and then when you think you got enough density of pigment down there, hit it with water from your water brush, and it just fills it all in, and there you go. I used it for the laundry on the line there in cyan and red, and then magnolia tree, and of course the forsythia. Just stopping in the car on the way to do errands, 20 minutes, and that's a house at a farm, an old Dutch farm that was happened to be abandoned in between owners, and I loved that cast shadow. on the side. Couldn't drive by it. And you see the back? No line. Those trees. And in front? No line. Just a little bit on the house. A lot of line. Same sketchbook, though. It still buckles. It was raining, in fact. I was under an umbrella.
I love the satellite dish and the TV antenna in the same place.
You see, that's probably what attracted me to this one.
That's storytelling. It means that different generations have lived in that house.
This is what vernacular architecture is all about. It's an old house. Someone adds to the back. Okay, then it needs more. They add more to the back, but only not so nice. It doesn't have a gabled roof. It's already bowed. The back door seems to have some very jerry-built steps on it, and it looks like it's about to come apart. Probably it looks like it's being used as a kitchen, maybe. Anyway, it was very overgrown and kind of irresistible. From the car, when it's cold, you can do a decent sketch, and you get to draw snow, which might be too cold. This one was in the 29th of December. I can see it probably was cold. We had about 45 minutes on this, and up in the Catskills, and it's fun. Vehicles, and with the snow on them, everything. You don't have to paint the snow; it's already there on your page. Back of a hotel in our town. Very interesting add-ons, right? This hotel did not originally look like that, I can tell you. But from the back, who cares, right? And 10
Same
years
place.
later, same place.
Huh.
Even more junk on the back of this building. Building was from about originally 1810, 1820.
That's a lot of detail you've got behind that fence. How do you sort that out and get all the detail planned out so you don't get lost?
You have to be logical about it. I mean, they needed to put systems on there. That's the kitchen. This is the back of it. The laundry is on the right for the hotel, and the kitchen is on the left. They need ventilator fans. They need coolers for the refrigeration units.
Oh, and there's a guy working over on the left
and
with the
there's
dark
a guy.
hat.
There's
Yeah.
obviously something wrong, and there's more machinery on the roof. How long
G.
they're going
E.
to go on
Hung
adding?
asked, what do you do when something in your drawing changes? For example, if cars pass by or people walk by or people move from where they were at the beginning. Do you draw them from memory or do you eliminate them in the sketch?
I try not to do. People I can do from memory because I'm pretty experienced at people. Cars, not so good at memory. Here's one. I bet you this car didn't stay here very long. I got part of it there. Yeah. This is just a quick one in the Catskills.
That looks like a brown line.
You're right. It's a brown micron. And I can see those people that I sketched in. I must have finished this when these people, all of a sudden, a man, and I think it was a man and his maybe 12-year-old daughter, they came out, and I thought, I got to put them in for scale. So I drew them, and you can see the steps go right through him. And she's got lines through her, too. So it's very quickly done. Just wash. That's an old railroad bridge in Poughkeepsie on our anniversary, I can see. And it was early enough again in spring where the leaves were delicate, the blossoms were still on. But I left everything pretty much gray or brown except the trees and the blossoms and a little bit of, looks like shrubbery. This one I did the ballpoint first. I can say I must have dove right in. And the detail was immense because it's kind of a junk collector shop down on a busy road. And there's really a lot of stuff around there. And I was trying to see if I can really get the feeling of all that junk.
What do you think about when you add a written note at the bottom of a picture?
I don't really think about it first
Like
at
when
all.
and where you were? Just
Yeah.
basic facts?
I mean, signage. I put that in, but as far as my describing it, I wait till the very end, just when I'm leaving, still on site, so I remember when I did it, where I did it, and if I have any additional notes, but real succinct. I chose where I wanted to put the color. in watercolor. We were standing in the front parking lot of the McDonald's.
I like the fact that it's commercial and residential mixed in the same picture.
Yeah, but I didn't want to paint the whole thing. The Colonel really interested me, so I spent a little bit of time on his sign. Same thing on this one, very similar.
Sign overload.
Sign overload. Welcome
here
to
you're going-
America, the built environment.
You do portraits of the signs of all the
What have
places
we done
you
to our world?
You don't eat.
What have we done to our world? Oh my! I know I don't eat at Burger King either, but I do get gas at Citgo. I like this little guy with the sign. I thought
What was he doing there?
He was keeping people from driving by.
A construction worker, presumably.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. An interior of a barn at the very farm that's near us that we'd love to paint at. I thought the outside view deserved a little bit of watercolor, but the inside is mainly just shadow and line. A little bit of raw sienna or ochre. I think it's ochre, kind of to just show that it's a barn lit by sunlight. Same thing at our favorite diner, and this little window, which looks like an airliner window, is at the side of it, or a train window of an old train, and it framed this view, and the view got the watercolor. Everything else just got the line.
Yeah, I like that you left the line for everything else.
It's fun.
Now, someone asked, do you like people to know you're sketching them, or do you prefer to sketch them unawares?
I prefer unawares, and when people are involved with either their phones or in a conversation, they don't pay attention. This guy didn't care either. He was obviously fishing is a very relaxing hobby, obviously, because he never moved. So that was fun. That's the Hudson River behind him. These guys are not noticing me because I'm sitting behind them and they're engrossed in a car race. And of course, my favorite subject, this is Jim painting a demo of another artist. So this is very meta. An artist.
A drawing of an artist making a drawing of another artist doing a drawing.
Right. So there's three in a row. I mean, it could have gone on infinitely.
Zev asks, what limitations have you found with this technique, and what are the best ways to work around them?
Limitations.
Are there ever times you kind of wish you'd worked in full watercolor?
Yeah, some subjects really call for full watercolor. When I really regret things is when I'm working on that thin laid finish paper in the wrong sketchbook, and I want to really hit it with color, a lot of pigment, but I'm in the wrong book.
So if you're going to use big wet washes, you better work on watercolor paper as
Right.
opposed to drawing paper.
And if you love to draw, you can work on a drawing paper. That would be like, a 60-pound paper, a 90-pound. But if you really want to put a lot of color, I use a 140-pound watercolor paper watercolor drawing sketchbooks. They are all watercolor paper. Stillman and Byrne makes them, and Moleskine makes them. Pentalic,
Okay.
Strathmore. Okay. People working, watercolor paper, heavy pit pen. I'm using a pit pen, which is very
What do you keep in mind when a subject is moving, really active, like not posing, but doing work?
Working
like this?
fast and small, and no pencil drawing. Just dive in and do the figure. But you have to be kind of used to doing figure work.
Yeah.
And just quick. These people were engrossed with their cell phones. They didn't notice me at all. It was a Chihuly show in a botanic garden. This woman never once glanced up. I did this from standing up, holding my all my materials, and she just stood there. That was a great subject. This guy, he just kept talking. We asked him questions, and he was at Sturbridge Village explaining how the farmers worked in 1830.
Ethan asks, what's your process for sketching faces using line and wash, and how do you preserve highlights and hair?
Well, highlights I preserved by leaving the paper. I did not use gouache on this at all.
Okay.
This man, he was graying, so his beard was pretty much white in the middle, and his mustache was white, and he had highlights on his on the brow ridge, and on the edge of his glasses. Yeah, I just was careful not to lose
Okay.
my. Okay. This is just line and wash, pandemic, making pandemic masks.
Nice.
These guys, 2 colors, warm and cool again. They were artists. They didn't even know I was sketching them. They were so engrossed in what they were doing, all of these guys. Cell phones and conversations. Farmer's market, great place to sketch. Just sit down, find a bench, or bring your stool. It's fun. County fair, another fun place. These people had no idea I was sketching them.
People waiting in line.
Waiting in line. And they change constantly, though. So some of these people, they weren't all necessarily here at the same time. Some of them, like the people in the front, I started with the furthest back because they cover the most. They overlap. So then I added in other people as the line shifted around. Yeah. Interesting architecture. Yeah. Pencil. This was pretty early, 1997. Pencil and wash. Yeah. Little tiny bits of cyan, red. The rest of it's just a little bit warm and cool, really. Architecture.
Do you have a favorite time of year to sketch?
No, all fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big waterfalls are hard to do in line and wash. That's what I challenged myself to try to do a waterfall in line and wash. And with not such great results, but at least it suggests it might be a waterfall. I love doing trucks. I didn't used to like doing trucks, but my husband loves doing trucks, so they kind of grew on me.
It looks like they're talking to each other.
Yeah, well, they were having a chat. Camping trips, great for sketching. Maine is really neat. I love sketching in Maine. And this one, it got foggy, so you notice it sort of goes back into the fog. That's a great use for watercolor. This is more bold, a Pemaquid Point, which has got just a wonderful bunch of rocks on it with a striking sort of lighthouse, a lot of white, which I've just let the paper do all the work for that. This is pretty much a monotone. It was backlit, if I remember right, and it's fun to do backlit subjects. Mainly pencil drawing, just suggesting what this Arizona ghost town looked like. The one on the upper left is more of a watercolor, and the one on the right is more of a line and wash with a little bit of water.
And here you've drawn in a border shape around each of these.
Yeah, it just seemed like it needed. I was thinking about snapshots. This is a small town in the Rockies. Still in the Rockies. Sometimes architectural detail will interest me, and the fact that this was a sort of vulture-looking bird on the top of this. Just line and is it line and wash? Yeah, it's not pencil.
Ballpoint, probably.
Yeah, ballpoint. I think I'm with ballpoint on this one. Road trips, always a lot of fun. Doesn't this building look like a face a little bit?
Yeah, you got the eyes, and then the window is the mouth.
Yeah. Baltimore. Yeah, brown line. The whole place seemed like it needed brown line. Very old place. Forsythia's, Irresistible. Once again, that's a Japanese brush pen with its own ink. This is more of an architectural study of a doorway. And see, old places that have been added to, always attractive. Yeah, brown line is fun. These cars look a little like Flintstone cars. But that jet, yeah, kind of brings a modern age into it. Venice.
Wow, big change.
That's that on the right is the place where they make the gondolas in Venice. Fiesole. Yeah. A small town in Apulia, where my mother was born. It was fun sketching there. These are the most unusual organic structures. They're called trulli, and they exist only in that part of Italy.
And the normal rules of perspective almost
Everything
don't apply here.
Well, same with that last one too. That Canada is like going to a foreign country.
Especially Quebec.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't closed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Quebec. Montreal. Fun.
Chinatown in Montreal. Even.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, there were some figures that walked in after I had started painting this, and I had to put them in because they helped me put in what was missing at first. You know, it needed something. Those two older women sitting there having a chat, resting. You know, put their shopping bags down, and a younger person walking through the arch. Another part of Chinatown in Montreal.
Someone asked, did you ever have a funny situation where you kind of had to abandon your sketch?
Yeah, we were drawing this really charming looking shop. They were selling all kinds of tourist things and knickknacks and all kinds of umbrellas. It was a sketch artist's dream. So I was sitting there having a very good time sketching it, and the proprietor came running out, and he waved his finger at us, and he yelled something at us. It may have been in Chinese, I don't know. And then, right after I was pretty much finishing up, he put a gigantic black umbrella in front of where I was sketching and blocked the view entirely. Ireland, they were very relaxed in Ireland. So much fun. It's fun.
It's one of the
Saved
teachers
the
asked,
day.
how important is it to learn 1 and 2 point perspective?
It is extremely important, and I can say that, and I took the entire perspective class, and I did not flunk it, but this one stumped me. And there were so many vanishing points on this one that I definitely started in pencil, and I made about, I would say, 4 or 5 false starts, and the perspective was wrong every time, and I could tell.
I got it wrong the first couple of times too. I had to keep erasing it.
And then you saved me. He gave me a few very key sight lines and vanishing points, and I was good to go after that. Switzerland, different kind of architecture. A lot of hills in Switzerland. An interesting architecture, especially the domestic architecture. Wow. Look at those roofs. Yeah. Everyone rides bikes. It's so neat. Canals going through the town. Bourges.
Yeah.
And it was not really on a tourist track, but wow, these were amazing buildings. Nantes, France. They had a canal and fairly modern architecture. Newcastle, England. I just wanted to concentrate on the Victorian ornate facade of the one narrow building and suggest the 2 flanking it. Shanghai. I liked the old town of Shanghai. That's probably disappeared by now. We hadn't been there in 9 years. And then we went to what's called a water village outside of Shanghai. And I tried just very limited palette. I just made the lanterns red.
The shadow of those roof details must have changed a lot while you were working on it. Someone was asking about how do you deal with that when the light changes quickly?
You have to decide on your moment. You can't keep chasing, as we call it, chasing the shadow.
And a related question is, how do you budget yourself time-wise? Do you know how long you're going to spend on something? Yeah,
like this one. I'm looking at a canal scene done in the same village, Zhujiajiao. And it's very simple because we didn't have much time. The whole group was sitting at the other side of the canal. We all figured we could put in, I think, a short time. It ended up being about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I went to a wet market.
Did they have like the bats and pangolins?
Not this wet market, but there were eels, bins of alive and pretty wiggly eels and frogs and I think turtles. And here's just various things. Cars are fun to draw. Some of them have faces. This is in a boat shop, a wooden boat shop. Animals are easier to sketch if they're stuffed. Costumes are tremendously fun for me to sketch. I love it. I minored in costume design for theater. Puppets, friend of ours has a toy collection. This is made of sort of porcelain, a matte finish porcelain called bisque. And same thing, line and wash a view, and then at our friend's toy house at another day. Sometimes I use the same page for various sketches. And there you can do flowers, obviously, very quickly. And a chicken.
So any final advice for students
Final advice.
who either want to do this as not as their main thing, but maybe as their hobby, and then ones who maybe do want to pursue art for a living?
Always keep it in your back pocket, line and wash. I mean, I don't do just line and wash. I do lots of other things, but it's the most fun way to just see everything in the world and note down what you want to remember.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out, and
Thank you.
thanks Jeanette for sharing your work.
Thank you.
It's
You've been a good audience, I think.
good questions.
Yeah, and then I thank my husband for his help.
You're welcome.
And I'd like a big thanks to Mrs. Harte-Gilsenan and her students and the faculty of Millburn High School. And you can click on the upper left to take a look at our redesigned JG website.
Or subscribe to our YouTube channel in the upper right.
And watch us on the lower left on a road trip video called Street Painting in Indiana.
Or binge watch a whole playlist of watercolor videos.